Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just a bit of housekeeping. If I could ask you to silence your phones, that would be wonderful. Good morning. I'm Shane Mazzella with the Fund for American Studies. I would like to welcome you to the commencement exercises for the class of 2013. First things first, I would like to congratulate each one of you who is graduating from an institute today. We are here to celebrate your accomplishments this summer, which are many. I wanted to start things off with just a snapshot. Collectively, as a class of almost 300 students, you have earned over 1,900 credit hours at George Mason University. You gave over 750 hours at service projects this summer, benefiting the DC community. You had the opportunity to attend over 50 site visits and special events. You interned at over 250 organizations, including government agencies, law firms, media outlets, government affairs offices, and nonprofit organizations. And at those organizations, you worked over 75,000 hours at your internships. So please stand and give yourself a well-deserved round of applause. I wanted to take a minute today to thank the many people who have helped make your summer such an amazing experience, including our internship supervisors, the 150 mentors who volunteered their time to meet one-on-one with you, the 140 guest speakers and small group discussion leaders who all volunteered their time. I also wanted to take a minute to thank your professors for their contributions to the classroom this summer. And I'm going to read their names and ask them to stand up. Richard Boyd, Donald Boudreau, Richard Benedetto, Nancy Boxker, Gary Armstrong, Robert Rafferty, Mike Collins, Bill Doherty, and John Kelleher. Let's give them a round of applause. I would also like to recognize the parents and family members who have traveled to be with us today. Thank you for giving your son or daughter the opportunity to spend a summer away from home and for supporting them along the way. Let's hear it for our parents and family members. One last group to thank here. It does take a bit of a village to put these programs together, so I wanted to give some appreciation and TFAS love and a big thank you to all of our staff who've worked so hard on putting these programs together. If you want to go ahead and hold your applause to the end, I wanted to read the name of our TFAS staff members. Working on ICPES and IIA, Lily Harrison, Caitlin Coet, Dylan Reed, and Brent Stevens. Working on our Institute on Political Journalism, Joe Stars and Aubrey Weaver. Working on the Institute on Business and Government Affairs, Colin Parks and Colleen Boyle. Working on our Philanthropy and Voluntary Service Program, Kristen Wright and Emily Tao. Our Recruitment and Admissions Team, Mary Stankus, Dana Fott, Jennifer Fanton. Our U.S. Programs Coordinator, who is in charge of everything from event registration to our graduation today, Lauren Goldberg. Our Special Events Director, Jane Mack. Our Vice President of Alumni Affairs, Michelle Lee. Our Chairman, Randall T., President Roger Ream, and members of our executive team. So could we give them a round of applause? And finally, I wanted to thank the students for this summer. We'd like to especially thank you for your ease at becoming friends with each other, your roommates, your coworkers, and other TFAS students. We hope that some of your most important learning came from your classmates. And we also hope that the strength of these connections will last long after today's closing ceremony. We were amazed at your willingness to stick your hand out and introduce yourself to just about anyone. We are excited to have students meet many prominent figures this summer while covering events, attending hearings, and sometimes just on the street. You met luminaries such as cabinet secretaries, Vice President Joe Biden, DC Mayor Vincent Gray, and numerous senators and representatives. You also met Major League Baseball players, the cast of the Book of Mormons, and journalists included David Gregory of Meet the Press, as well as Andrea Mitchell and Chuck Todd of NBC News, just to name drop a few. Someone once said, "Opportunity dances with those already on the dance floor." And I'd like to think that each of you has put yourself on that very dance floor this summer by making special contributions to your classes and your internships. and we have no doubt that you will continue to make that kind of impact wherever you go, whether it's graduate school, your first job, here in DC, or back in your home community. And we are honored that you chose to spend your summer with us. Now, we are delighted to have George Mason University professor Donald Boudreau with us to say a few words on behalf of the Economics Department, our host within George Mason. Professor Boudreau taught 2 classes for us this summer, including Economics for the Citizen, as well as Economic Problems in Public Policies. The Fund for American Studies is grateful for the new partnership that we have with the university, and we appreciate the strong academic tradition and state-of-the-art classroom facilities that they share with our students. Before I have Professor Boudreau come to the podium, I did want to thank the team of people at George Mason who helped us make this summer possible, including our TFAS program manager stationed at George Mason, Mark Funstein, Tori Parker, who is our representative in the admissions department, and the chair of the economics department, Dan Hauser. Now please join me in welcoming Professor Boudreau to the podium.
Thank you, Shane. I will be brief as instructed. I'm here speaking really in two roles, a representative of George Mason University and the economics department there. As you can tell, there are a lot of Georges in this town. Georgetown, the place where TFAS used to be, George Washington, where we are now, George Mason, where the students all took classes for the first time this summer under TFAS and George Mason's partnership. And I'm delighted and honored, and I speak for my colleagues at George Mason to say I'm delighted and honored for this connection that we now have with TFAS. I hope and trust that that this is the first summer of many. And I also liked it because when I taught in the past for TFAS at Georgetown, I had to drive into Georgetown, and parking in Georgetown is awful. So I avoided that problem. But more happily for me, even more happily, is my saying a word in my role as professor. I taught for TFAS, as I just suggested, even before it was affiliated with GMU, my home institution. And every summer I'm impressed by how much more intelligent, engaged, creative, and curious students are in this program. And certainly compared to what I remember myself and my colleagues being back in the late 70s and early 80s. And I don't think that has anything to do with the fact that the drinking age was lower back then than it is today. I think it's a testament to you and your intelligence. And someone might say, well, it's a selection bias. You know, the students chosen for this program are chosen because of their special intelligence and skills. And I think that's exactly right. And so you should all applaud yourself for having been chosen, having successfully completed this summer. It's been a great pleasure and honor for me to teach those of you who I taught. Those of you who weren't in my classes, well, you'll just have to lead a full life without having had one of my classes, but I'm sure you will. So congratulations and thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Joe Stars, Director of U.S. Summer Programs. Welcome. This is a great day indeed. I'd like to invite two of our students to step forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and to offer an invocation on this very special day. Leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance is Alexander Brown. Alex is a cadet at the Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia. His hometown is Smithburg, Maryland, and his internship summer was with the Charles Group. Offering the invocation is Michael LaCroix. Mike is a student at Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan. He hails from Ypsilanti, Michigan, and this summer he was an intern at America's Future Foundation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you could please stand, put your right hand over your heart, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can take your seats. With the awareness that there are many faiths present here today, I ask that you join me in a spirit of thankfulness and prayer. Let's pray. God, we are first and foremost thankful for the incredible opportunities we've been given this summer in our nation's capital. We thank you for all the hard work that the fund, our professors, and internships have put into making this summer one that was full of experiences that taught us, stretched us, and challenged us. I pray that we wouldn't forget the valuable experiences we've had here and everything we've learned from those opportunities. May we never forget those who have helped us come this far and continue to push us and challenge us. Help us to take the valuable lessons we've learned this summer and use them wisely in our lives and future careers. Finally, God, bless our families, friends, and all those who have supported us. May your wisdom, grace, and guidance be with us always as we move forward. We pray this all in your name. Amen.
Now it's my honor to introduce 5 students that we've selected as representatives of their individual institutes to share some thoughts about their experiences this summer. Representing ICPES is Pasquale DiFrancesco, a political science major at Allegheny College. He hails from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and this summer his internship was with the North American Association for Environmental Education. Pat is an AmeriCorps Bonner Scholar, committed to completing 300 hours of community service every school year. Representing IEIA, our international program, is Ariel Braunstein, a junior at Villanova University. She's a major in Arabic and Islamic studies. This summer she interned at the World Justice Project, and she hails from Trumbull, Connecticut. Ariel is a junior, and she plans to study in Spain next semester to complete her Spanish minor. Representing IPJ is Tiana Magnon, and Tiana is a journalism major at Rochester Institute of Technology. This summer, she covered Capitol Hill for a great newspaper, The Hill newspaper. Prior to IPJ, she completed an internship with a newspaper called The Democrat and Chronicle, and she also did an internship at the TFAS Smalley program. Representing IBGA is Kate Verdon, a junior from Oregon State University. She hails from Salem, Oregon, and this summer she interned at the Satellite Broadcasting and Communications Association. She's an English major paired with international affairs and with a minor in French. She participates in marching band and treasurer of her writing club. And finally, last but not least, representing IPVS is Alan Rogers, a senior government major at Connecticut College. Alan hails from Coventry, Connecticut, and this summer he interned with Mentors, Inc. And Alan is a giver. He works with organizations in his school community who strive to enhance community through various programs. And last summer, he completed a semester-long program in South Africa. So come on up.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks for TFAS for giving me the opportunity to speak today. No matter what chapter in the storybook of life you are currently writing, I'm willing to bet that if you were in this program, you have a dream. So I want to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite motivational speakers, Lester Brown, who posed an intriguing question I think many of us may have asked ourselves at one point in our lives. He asked, "Where's the richest place on the planet?" Many of us might think it's right here in Washington, D.C. Maybe it's in the various gold and diamond mines scattered throughout the world. Actually, no. Mr. Brown goes on to clarify that the richest place on earth is the graveyard. Because it is here that you will find all of the hopes and aspirations that were never acted upon, the books that were never written, songs that were never sung, the inventions and the ideas that were never shared, the cures that were never discovered, all because someone was too afraid to take that first step, keep with the problem, and carry out their dream. As young students, we all hold some vision of what we want to do with ourselves in about 5, 10, maybe even 20 years. But hey, who can blame us for having dreams? We were accepted into a program that makes it so easy to be inspired. All we have to do is walk down the street and we're running a memorial after memorial of individuals who faced challenges, who had dreams, both big and small. Presidents, businessmen and women, government officials, social entrepreneurs, scattered across D.C. like flowers in a field of opportunity. Yet regardless of all their successes, there is one thing all of these individuals have in common. They all started somewhere. And lucky for all of us, we are graduating from a program many could only dream to be a part of. Just a short 8 weeks ago, I didn't know what was ahead. With an open mind and a positive attitude, I began working at the North American Association for Environmental Education and had the opportunity to help improve this small but growing nonprofit. Together in the classroom, we were fortunate enough to share a month with Professor Boudreau and learn about the significance of free market economies and its most valuable asset, wine. And in July, Professor Cranwitter walked us through American history as easily if he was there since the founding. However, the memories that I will truly never forget are those that didn't appear on our weekly schedule. The opportunity to sit at the German Heritage Museum and with fellow interns learn valuable drinking traditions at the age of 20. To attend a Baltimore Orioles game with a descendant of Thomas Jefferson and to sit in the same seats that Marilyn Monroe once did. To shake hands with a World Series MVP and not even know it until he left the room. To walk through museums of endless knowledge, hear senators discuss pertinent issues of the day, and to be truly humbled, looking out at this city of opportunity amongst the field of white headstones that make it all possible. This summer for me was truly a self-investment, an investment in my character, my education, my ability to problem solve, and most importantly, to empathize with viewpoints I may have not always held on my own. And for all of this, TFAS, I can simply say thank you. Thank you for all the moments and memories, for the laughs and the pictures and the stories I will never forget. Thank you to all the parents and the donors who paid the bill, to all of my new friends, and to the best roommates a man could ask for. I've truly enjoyed every moment that we have spent together. These long summer days in D.C. haven't always been easy, but hey, Napoleon Hill once said, "Life isn't meant to be easy, it's meant to be lived." What we are all achieving right now is only the tip of the iceberg. The future is truly ours, and what we choose for it to look like. But it takes determination to stay in the game of life. The task won't be easy. But to help, keep in mind the immortal words echoed by a man whose memorial lies but a few blocks from our summer home at George Washington University. Abe Lincoln once said, "Good things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." So keep hustling, TFAS class of 2013. The country's counting on you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ariel Bronstein, and I'm a rising junior at Villanova University. It's been an absolute privilege to have been given the opportunity to participate in the Institute in Economics and International Affairs, or as we call it, the IEIA, these past 8 weeks. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge several very important members of the TFAS staff, without whom this summer would not have been possible. First, I'd like to thank Lily Harrison, our program director. Lily has worked tirelessly to ensure that all events, briefings, internship placements, and classes run smoothly, and she's been the driving force behind all of us here at T-Staff. So thank you, Lily. Secondly, I'd like to thank Dylan Reed and Caitlin Coet, our program advisors. They somehow managed to keep us all organized and faithful to our demanding schedules and became friends with many of us along the way. We all appreciate how much you've done for us, and thank you both. As I mentioned, I'm going to be a junior this fall at Villanova, which is located about 10 miles outside of Philadelphia. As an Arabic and Islamic studies major, I quickly realized that in order for me to really delve into and take full advantage of my studies, it'd probably be in my best interest to utilize the resources available to me through our staff. In order to do this, I needed to be exposed to different people with different beliefs, ideas, cultures, and languages. And that's something that an underclassman at a small private university doesn't always experience. That's when I found TFAS and immediately applied. Coming to DC has been quite the experience. I was fortunate enough to intern with the World Justice Project, which helped me to get the true insider's perspective of DC. I would have to say that the best part of my internship was attending various seminars throughout the city and writing about them for the WJP blog called Justice Rising. Not only did this give me the chance to listen to renowned presenters discuss current hot topics that interest me and coincide with the work I do, but I can also now say that I'm published, and that's pretty neat for someone my age. Taking classes at George Mason was equally as important to the TFAS experience as were the internships. Our two distinguished professors, Dr. Raymond Fish and Dr. Gary Armstrong, played critical roles in helping us to look at the big picture rather than allowing us to get completely caught up in Potomac fever. Whether it was examining the intricacies of how the economy functions or how America's foreign policy has evolved throughout the past century, both professors certainly gave me insight into details I'd never before considered in such depth. More importantly than work in class, however, was meeting and getting to know a group of extraordinary people who I'm now blessed to call best friends. I know I share these sentiments with many people here, and it's a scary thought to realize that tomorrow we'll all be leaving Ivory Tower, headed for different towns, states, and even countries. With that in mind, I'd like to close with a quote from Richard Bach that has helped to remind me that goodbyes are only temporary. He writes, "Do not be dismayed at goodbyes. A farewell is necessary before you can meet again, and meeting again after moments or lifetimes is certain for those who are friends." Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I've actually wanted to be a journalist since I was 11 years old. I've always loved to write, and the idea of gathering a story, asking those shrewd questions that the public couldn't ask themselves, and then explaining very complex ideas in a way that just anyone could understand just always appealed to me. And about 2 years ago, I decided to become a political reporter. I declared my political science major, placing it alongside the journalism one that I decided upon 7 years prior. And although I was studying both journalism and political science, I didn't get to mix the two until 8 weeks ago when I started TFAS. And when I actually began the program, it finally confirmed for me that something that I've been working for 9 years is actually what I want to do. So how fortunate am I to know at just 20 years what I want to do with the rest of my life? To be able to spend summers exactly like this, gradually building myself into the reporter that 11-year-old me always wanted to be. But this summer confirmed more than my career. I remember the first day of the program, probably better than I remember any other day. My mom drove me here. And as we pulled into the city, I could feel my heart speed up. It was racing, as if it could break out of me and go to the apartment before the rest of my body could. And I could feel my stomach drop into my lap, as if it was a child, to peer out the window because it didn't trust my own eyes. And I could feel my mouth get dry, and for the first time, I was so happy that naturally my words are written, not spoken, because speaking them failed me at that time. I just knew I was home. DC was my home. I had been in the city less than 2 minutes, but I knew that my dreams of living here were confirmed. I honestly can't live anywhere else now. And I've since identified those symptoms as Potomac fever. So in just the first week, this program confirmed that DC is home, that political reporting is actually really what I wanted to do, but it didn't stop there. Every day, I woke up convinced that my alarm had not done a proper job. How could it be that each and every morning on my way to work at the Hill newspaper, I got to pass the White House? How did I get to meet Chris Moody, a leading Yahoo reporter that I have been reading and following for years? How did I end up on the House floor at an event with other TFAS students, sitting just in front of a drawer that I, as a journalist, could not stop myself from rifling through because I was convinced the next Pentagon Papers were waiting for me? Finally, how did I end up not only part of this program, but chosen to represent my institute? There is, unfortunately, no favorite memory that I have for you. Each and every class, each and every event, each and every day contributed to my time here. There is no day that I take back, and if asked, there is no day that meant the most to me, except probably that first day. Each day was a day filled with love for what I was doing, the people I know I will spend my entire life calling my friends, and a place that cannot be rivaled by anywhere else on earth. But if I had to try, and I mean I was forced to think of a favorite day, it would be today. Because although it's all over and I really can't imagine leaving, I finally get to share what this entire program meant to me. I can finally try and convey the importance of the Institute on Political Journalism and how critical it is for young journalists trying to find themselves. I know I grew as a journalist through my internship, as a student and thinker through my economics and ethics courses, as a professional through the events, which included learning how to network, taco night at the National Press Club, and talking with a press secretary. But I also grew as a person due to being surrounded by some of the most intelligent people on earth. As surprised as I may be by my experiences here, and especially by the growth that I've seen in myself, I know 11-year-old me is not. It was like she always knew we would be here. She knew what my dreams were. She knew we'd accomplish them. And I am extraordinarily thankful for TFAS for allowing me to take those first steps toward my dream. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate Verdon, and I'm a junior at Oregon State University with a major in English. Through the Fund for American Studies, I participated in the Institute on Business and Government Affairs, or IBGA. I interned at the Satellite Broadcasting and Communications Association, and I am thrilled to talk to you today about how meaningful my time in DC has been. First, a little bit about how I got here. I found out about the Fund for American Studies in an email sent by OSU Career Services. As soon as I clicked the link, I knew TFAS, and more specifically, IBGA was calling my name. I was so excited to go to DC to not only take classes, but to gain professional work experience in one of the most intern-friendly places in all of America. While literature written by Shakespeare and Hemingway are extremely important, I know as an English major, I need real work experiences so I do not have to move back into my parents' house after graduation. Oregon State University is on a term system, so I had to finish classes early, and literally right after my last final, I hopped on a red-eye flight that finally brought me to DC. The first few days included torrential downpours unlike anything I'd ever seen. Did I mention I am from Oregon, where it rains consistently from October to June? Many of us learned that carrying an umbrella 24/7 is necessary to avoid looking like a drowned cat in a matter of seconds. I didn't even own an umbrella until this summer. Furthermore, IBGA has been a gift of many opportunities for all of us. For example, the site briefings at the Federal Reserve and State Department, small groups with the American Chemistry Council and US Telecom, the guest lecture series, and embassy briefings. The TFAS staff members stopped at nothing to ensure that we had an incredible summer. Each event provided the opportunity to learn new ideas and broaden our own way of thinking. Like many of my peers in IBGA, I interned at a trade association where I utilized my business writing and communication skills by taking meeting minutes and writing newsletters and press releases for SBCA. My supervisor, Amy Hager, became an amazing mentor through providing insight to life in DC as a young professional. Thank you, Amy, for everything you did. Similarly, the classes at George Mason University were thought-provoking and very interesting. Personally, I had never taken an economics class in my life, so I was scared, especially after the multiple choice test we took on the first day of class. However, I maintained an open mind, and the class became extremely valuable because it provided insight to the application of economic concepts in the business world. The Ethics and Leadership 2-day workshop brought out the more competitive sides of each other and the desire to win the exercises. The American spirit was alive and well in this bunch. One of the most valuable experiences of our time are the contacts, and most important, the true friends we made. I fell in love with the rush of activity, political diversity, and history of this city. And through the contacts I established here, I was able to meet some incredible people. Not only did we experience some amazing things here, but we also made some great friends. As IBGA classmates, I'd say we were initially hesitant to get closer, but as the weeks continued on and we had more interesting class experiences together and had more internship tales to tell about crazy workloads, bosses, and projects, we bonded more and more. One of the most valuable things I learned this summer was the importance to maintain an open mind. Many of the people I met out here, classmates, roommates, and connections alike, who had different or similar viewpoints than me about the world, politics, or social issues, all had the same trait. They were willing to sit down and have constructive conversations and listen to what others had to say. We have been blessed with this experience, but it also has endowed us with a responsibility to act accordingly. I cannot stress the importance to go back to wherever you came from and bring with you the open-minded perspective only DC could have given you. What are you going to do differently when you go home? Are you going to join an organization, serve in the community, and be a more informed voter? I plan to return to Oregon, and more specifically OSU, and bring with me the new ideas and vigor I attained in DC to try and make a difference. Think about the person you are now in comparison to the beginning of this adventure. It is amazing to think how transformative 2 quick months can be. The summer flew by, as we were told it would, but with the new skills we've learned, it's time to go back home and return to our campuses with a fresh perspective on our country and a new umbrella. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Alan Rogers, and I'm honored to represent the Institute of Philanthropy and Voluntary Service, class of 2013. Represent. First, I would like to just send a special shout out to my grandmother, who is here for graduation. Meemaw, put your hand up. There she is right there. There we go. Okay. Throughout this summer in Washington, D.C., we've had the opportunity to evaluate and better define the direction we intend to pursue, both personally and professionally. From classes on democracy and ethics, briefings at the State Department, World Bank, Capitol Hill, and embassies ranging from Hong Kong to Greece, we've been exposed to the inner workings of both the U.S. and foreign governments. Living minutes from the Lincoln Memorial and the White House has exposed us to possibilities of what hard work and commitment can achieve in this country. And turning with some of the top nonprofit organizations throughout the city and having the honor through fundraisers and events to raise money for the Urban Alliance Foundation, which helps create work experience and job opportunities for the DC youth, has helped us to give back to the city that has given us so much. One experience that has left a lasting impression on me is the day we had a book sale to raise money for a local charity. As we prepared to get to work, we noticed a gentleman staring at us from his car. After checking us out a bit, he asked what we were doing. I told him what we were up to, the book sale, and asked if he would like a cup of coffee. I brought him the coffee, and we began to talk about D.C. and how 30 years ago he was raised on the street where the TFAS office is located. He talked about how it was different growing up as a black man in D.C. in the 60s and 70s, and how the neighborhood and city has changed since that time. As we talked, I noticed he kept looking at my head and looking from side to side. He then said in a calm voice, "You got your hair cut in D.C., huh?" I looked at him, I said, yeah, I did. You like it? Then he replied, Barbers in D.C. still don't know how to cut. He then proceeded to pull out a chair, a razor, a pair of hair clippers from his car trunk and told me to sit down in the chair in the middle of the street. He sat me in the chair and began to cut my hair. I admit, I was nervous. I didn't know who this man was. He had a razor to my face, and he had a German Shepherd staring at me from the car, which, despite Professor Boyd's love and admiration for the breed of dog, still made me nervous and on guard. When he finished, I looked in the mirror, and to my amazement, he had given me a haircut better than it was before. He worked with something that wasn't good and made it better. As he packed up his equipment, he showed me that he was a licensed and award-winning barber from New York, which would have helped to calm my nerves in the beginning. I don't know why he was hiding in the first place. Said goodbye and drove off. The point to that random story is that life is going to move you in directions you never imagined and introduce you to people more amazing than you can ever believe. I've traveled some winding roads before arriving here in D.C. After 5 months in South Africa and losing my grandfather while I was gone, I journeyed here to work with inner-city youth through my internship, Mentors, Inc., to getting my hair cut by a questionable man from the trunk of his car, all in a matter of 8 months. I've learned this important lesson. The pursuit of happiness and success is not simple. It's a complicated journey that everyone deserves to travel. But this is not the case for many in this country. Too many are struggling from day to day with the basics. Food, shelter, and a quality education or in short supply for too many people. It's even hard to walk from a 7-Eleven with a bottle of tea and a bag of candy. To my TFAS brothers and sisters, we have work to do. Not only for ourselves and our families, but on behalf of all the people of our communities, especially the young people who are quietly watching us every day. I'd like to thank the IPVS crew, staff, and students, my friends, for the honor of meeting you all and the total experience of sharing this time with you. I look forward to seeing your names in the newspaper for the work you have done sooner rather than later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alan. Now we have a special slideshow, video show of some of the highlights from the summer.
That was great. I want to thank Lauren and Dana and Jen for preparing the slideshow. It was excellent. And thanks to our student speakers. I think the 5 of you really captured so much of the Live, Learn, Intern experience. We appreciate that very much. Thank you, guys. I'm Roger Ream. I'm president of the Fund for American Studies, and I always really enjoy this day, not because I have 300 less young people I'm responsible for, though that is a relief, but because it's the culmination of an 8-week program which we hoped helped better prepare these young men and women to really make a difference in the world in the future. This has been an outstanding summer for us. It was our first summer working with both George Washington University and George Mason University, and these 2 academic partners were really outstanding to work with, and we're privileged in this city to have such great institutions of higher learning and to be associated with 2 of them this summer. I had the opportunity this summer to spend a week in Hong Kong, where we have a program at the University of Hong Kong that's also accredited by George Mason University. It's an outstanding program. We had 70 students from throughout Asia, from India, Bangladesh, and Nepal to Vietnam, Cambodia, China, and South Korea, and including about 10% of the students being from the United States. We also have a program underway as I speak in the Czech Republic. Professor Mike Collins was there earlier in the month, and our other faculty is finishing up that program for students from throughout Europe, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the former Soviet Union, as well as Americans. And in January, we have a program in Santiago, Chile, in Latin America, for students from throughout this hemisphere. I say that to encourage any students who are with us this summer here in Washington to consider one of our overseas programs, either in January or next summer. They're shorter programs. They last from 2 to 3 weeks, but they're just a fantastic opportunity to connect with young people throughout the world who, like you, want to make a difference and make this a better place to live. I would, before introducing our speaker, just like to say a few words to our students, soon to become alumni of the TFAS experience. You've now reached the conclusion of our Learn, and Intern summer experience. It's time for me to disclose to you why we brought you here this summer. Why is it that we spend the year raising money, securing and evaluating internship opportunities, or arranging mentorships, lining up guest speakers, and have been doing so every summer since 1970? I will now reveal the answer. The founders of the Fund for American Studies believed deep down that it is the obligation of every generation to prepare leaders for the future. We are seeking to do nothing less than to prepare young people for honorable leadership. It is a deep responsibility of all who live in a free society to work at perpetuating that freedom, because freedom is all too rare in this world and is all too rare in human history. We take that responsibility very seriously. And if this is indeed an experiment in liberty that was created some 235 years ago, we have a responsibility to see that that experiment continues for future generations. Our objective is not to impart a particular political ideology or to push certain public policy outcomes. We seek to teach basic principles that help explain the way the world works. We do that through the courses we offer. We hope that is something that you gain from your living together with students from throughout the world, and that you gain that in your internships and co-curricular activities. There's a story of a shoe manufacturing company that once sent 2 salesmen to a region in Africa where no one from that business had been before, asking them to determine the prospects the company had for selling shoes to the people who lived there. One salesman immediately sent a cable back that read, "Situation hopeless. No one wears shoes." A few days later, the second salesman wired, "Glorious opportunity. No one wears shoes." Well, that's kind of the glass half empty, half full. Your generation is certainly going to inherit a tremendous amount of challenges and problems. Every generation does. Yours may be bigger problems. They may not be. But whatever the case may be, you'll have your challenges, which means you'll have your opportunities to really make a difference and make this world a better place. And it starts not here in Washington, though I can tell some of you have Potomac fever and want to return. But it starts in your everyday interactions, in your families, in your communities, in your neighborhoods, in your groups of friends. That's where you can truly make a difference with those you encounter every day, friends or strangers. So I encourage you to do that. Now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker today, Kelly Williams Brown, an author and columnist. It's a pleasure to introduce Kelly because she is a graduate of our Institute on Political Journalism, class of 2005. She attended that program with the benefit of a partial scholarship. She had the opportunity to intern at the National Journal. This gives me the opportunity to make a quick plug for our scholarship program. Roughly 70% of the students who attend our programs receive scholarship assistance, generally partial scholarships, some full, and some of you I know pay your full tuition and housing. I want to thank our donors throughout the country who provide scholarships that enable us to bring students to these programs. It's through their generosity that we're able to do our work. And as a nonprofit organization, beyond the scholarships we give to students, we depend on donor support to fund our operations entirely. I also want to say something to you students as alumni. We now hope you will go do great things in the world, make a difference, make an impact as our speaker has done in her short career. You will become alumni very soon. We really consider this, we say this is a commencement, but you're only about halfway through the TFAS experience. Now the other half begins. We want you to stay connected with us. We want you to keep us informed as you go through life about job changes, personal changes, honors you might receive, other educational achievements you encounter. Please let us know. We like to publicize it in our newsletter. We like to be a help along the way. You'll be able to connect with alumni chapters in many of the cities or places you go in life. You can access an online database of 14,000 other TFAS alumni who you can connect with and network with as you go through your careers. I know in the audience today we have 3 TFAS alumni who have daughters, in all 3 cases, who attended the program this summer. So think about that in the future when you have families. Send your sons and daughters back here. Please support our scholarship fund as well. We rely on alumni support to continue providing scholarships to our program. But please consider yourself part of this TFAS family of alumni and stay connected with us. Now, Kelly Williams Brown has received national recognition for her recently published book, the title of which is Adulting: How to Become a Grown-Up in 468 Easy-ish Steps. Since the book's publication, Kelly's been very busy. She's been a guest on the NBC Today show. She's been featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. She's been on Fox and Friends. The book is getting attention literally around the world. There's a Hollywood producer, I am told, who is currently working on a television sitcom based on the book. Prior to Kelly's literary success, she worked as a reporter and columnist at the Statesman Journal in Portland, Oregon, as associate editor for the New Orleans Publishing Group, and as a featured reporter in Mississippi for the Hattiesburg American. She's a native of southern Louisiana, received her bachelor's degree in journalism from Loyola University, and now lives in Portland, Oregon, and works with the advertising firm Leopold and Cattell. On Kelly's website, she claims she is really good at cooking gumbo, étouffée, steaks, and stew, and is proficient at cooking a number of other things. She also says she loves to read, dance, craft. She was telling me this morning how she loves to drive to small towns, eat lunch, go to folk festivals, really engage in life in the way some of our speakers talked about in their recommendations to students. She tells me she'll feign an interest in sports if you want to talk sports with her. But she really is someone who's really fully engaged in observing things around her, which made her equipped to write this excellent book. She tweets, she blogs, you should follow her. And I think she will have some very interesting things to offer us today. So please give a very warm welcome to Kelly Williams Brown.
Hello, good morning. It is so lovely to be here with y'all today. It was incredible to hear the student speakers, to see the slideshow, to get to reminisce on my own time here at TFAS, which you can breathe a sigh of relief because I will not be reminiscing aloud. That can get real boring real quick. And I hope that all of you not necessarily had fun this summer, because that's not the point, and I'm sure you all did anyway. But I hope that you saw things and met people that you wouldn't otherwise have. I hope you had experiences that you'll always remember. I hope that being so close to the heart of the political world was by turn fascinating and terrifying and then fascinating again. And that when you leave, you have a better idea of what you want to do and who you want to be than you did before you got here. At least for me, my summer really was one of those watershed moments in my life, sort of a point that my life bended around. Before it was this way, and now it's that way. I also hope that you'll forgive me for this, but despite a very firmly established tradition for these kinds of speeches, I am not here to congratulate you. Yes, I'm sorry. Congratulations to none of you. And that sounds really harsh, and it's a little bit unfair, so I hope you'll stick with me through my reasoning for this. I don't know any of you. I met a few of you this morning. But I do know that each and every one of you is worthy of congratulations for your accomplishments. You are not a randomly selected group of people. You're here because you're smart, because you're ambitious, because you look at the political world and the state of our country and say, you know what? I want to be a part of that, and I want to do something there. Equally importantly, you're all here because there are people in your life who love you and who have invested in you, whether that be parents who are willing to support you for the summer, whether it was the professor who wrote you that glowing recommendation, or TFAS itself, who looked at you and said, yes, we want you here to be a part of this. And that in life could be just as important as the other things I mentioned. So since you are all smart, driven, ambitious, clever, wonderful, attractive people already, it is my deepest hope for you that your crowning achievement in this life not be the completion of a summer internship program. Because this is an amazing thing that you have all done here this summer. But it's an experience. It's not a tiara. It will open doors for you and it will take you places in life, but it's not something that you can just put on your head and point to at random and say, oh yes, I did TFAS. I'll take that CEO-ship now. The value in what you've done this summer is what you take forward with you from it. So even though it is absolutely worthy of being discussed, I'm not going to talk today about the things that you've already done. I'd rather talk about what you're going to do now. I'll start with the simple and then move forward. First, an assignment. I'm really sorry. I know you have had a zillion assignments this summer. I remember having about 18 assignments per day between internship and classes. And this one is optional. I can't enforce it. But really quick, show of hands. Who here has written a really sincere, handwritten thank you note to their supervisor? Okay, I'd say a good 53%. So 47% of you have a task ahead of you. And I would love it if you would do this now. Don't get on the plane and go home and get re-involved with your friends in your life and forget the details. Do it today. You have 2 thank you notes to write. One goes to your supervisor. And the thing is, this thank you note will be painfully heartfelt. You are going to cut open your heart and just give the tenderest bit to your supervisor. You are not going to write it in the manner of a 7-year-old thanking his grandma. Dear Mr. Chen, it was neat to be an intern this summer. I learned a lot. Thank you. That's not going to be it. You are going to take a moment and reflect on what this person has given you. And you're going to think about the time they put in. You're going to think about who you were before your internship and who you are now. So here's just a simple sample one. Dear Mr. Chen, it has been a great pleasure working with you. Your sense of humor, willingness to take the extra time for me, and eventually, faith in my abilities and assignments way beyond what I could have imagined made this summer the most rewarding I've ever experienced. Thank you so much for something this person taught you that you walked away with. We'll go in here. You'll be specific. You'll give examples. It meant more than I can say. All my best, Kelly. So that's to your supervisor. Now there's one other person that you are also going to write to, at least one, maybe more if you're lucky. But there was the person you worked with who didn't have to work with you, who didn't have to help you out, but they did it anyway because they liked you. This person was the person you went out to lunch with, the person who told you what was really going on at the office. Whenever you intern somewhere, there is the person who doesn't have to take you under their wing, but they do anyway. That is the person you need to keep in touch with. That is your future mentor. That is the person who will go to bat for you. That is the person who had no obligation to you, had their own stuff to do, and yet did it anyway. I'm actually going out to lunch with mine after this. Elizabeth Reed not only taught me the ways of National Journal, but also emphasized the importance of getting one really nice, expensive pair of black high heels. Ladies out there, take note. It's a really great thing to have. So you do not want to lose touch with the people beyond just the internship people that you met this summer. Another show of hands. Who here has LinkedIn, aka boring Facebook? Okay, a lot of LinkedIners. Awesome. I'm not going to talk about that then. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on there now. And I assume you're all on Facebook, right? Is everyone's Facebook as boring and sterile as it can possibly be? If it's not, if you have bikini pictures or drinking pictures or whatever, that's fine. Make sure the outside world cannot see it. As far as the outside world is concerned, your social media existence is that of someone who wakes up early, volunteers with the homeless, prepares a sensible meal, and then goes to bed. So get that all locked down right now. And speaking of mistakes we can make, we're going to take 5 seconds of silence coming up here. Don't worry, all time. I want all of you to look back over the summer to the stupidest thing you said or did during your internship. I know there is something for all of you. Ready? Let's reflect. Okay. I absolve you all of doing whatever you did as long as you promise that you will never do it again. I did something so phenomenally stupid during my internship that I went back and forth as to whether I actually could bring myself to share it today, 8 years later. I can't, for the record. And I'll bet there's at least some people out in this audience who feel similarly. Now, the good news about making this mistake is that A, we're all human, and we have to make mistakes, particularly if we don't have a lot of experience being in a business environment. B, you weren't being paid for it, which makes it a little easier. C, as long as Gawker didn't write it up, which I hope whatever intern they were talking about the other day is not in this room. If you are, bless you. I wish you all the luck. But you made that mistake now, so you won't make it in the future, okay? And that is important. So beyond that, and leaving that behind, never letting that worry you again, unless you're me, in which case you'll remember it in technicolor detail 8 years later, there is a story you will want to tell about your internship. And this shouldn't just be the way you write up the internship on your resume. You really need to figure out what the narrative of your summer is, the short story of it. Because the truth is, you are going to talk about this internship and this experience as you move forward and try to find a job. And when you're in a job interview, you will, yes, list the things that you did there like you would in a resume, but a much more effective means of communicating that is to figure out what the story is, because people like stories and people can attach themselves to stories. So take a second, think about who you were before you got here, and think about who you are now and how you would describe that transition. I promised I wouldn't reminisce, but now I'm going to break that promise. When I arrived here in DC, I was an opinion columnist for my student paper. I was full of political opinions, much to the dismay of anyone who had to interact with me socially, because I would just constantly be spouting these opinions. And it's embarrassing to admit now, my career objective, and I said this out loud to people, was to become a pundit, which is the 20-year-old with a political opinion version of, I'm gonna be a polar bear when I grow up. Like, it's contentless, essentially. What I was saying is, I wanna be someone who tells other people what to think. And so when I got to National Journal, I realized that A, a lot of my opinions I had never really fact-checked or critically examined, and B, I was surrounded by people who were so much smarter than me and had so much more insight on implication of policy and elections, and yet these people somehow did not feel the need to tell other people what to think. They had decided to spend their career gathering important, impartial information and then giving it to people. And so when I got back to my newspaper, when I got back to my university, I said, I'm not going to spend the next year spouting opinions. I'm going to spend the next year becoming the best reporter that I can be. So sadly, obviously now, I very rarely get to participate in 24-hour news opinion yelling parties, but maybe it's just as well. And so my summary of the summer would be to say, you know, I spent the summer covering polls and the Supreme Court for the National Journal. It was incredible to be surrounded by so many talented reporters, and as soon as I got home, I gave up my position as an op-ed columnist and decided instead to focus on and produce news as unbiased and straightforward as what they do at National Journal. So once you have your story, it brings me to my next point. All of you, as we've already established, are smart, with-it people who are going to do really cool things in your life. A lot of you have had DC in your crosshairs in terms of your career trajectory for a long time before you got here. Some of you are leaving with that exact same feeling. Actually, I'm going to embarrass her, but my co-intern from when I was here is sitting up in the gallery up there. Jessica Taylor is an incredible reporter. Jessica, as soon as she was done with school, she was back here interning in DC. She was working with the National Journal group. Then she hopped over to Politico for a while, and now she's at NBC News. And if you were like Jessica, if you were like Tiana, where this summer has just crystallized what you want, then every single step you take in your academic career needs to be with the goal of moving back towards here. Because DC, you have to buy into it. You're going to wake up early and stay up late and have a tiny apartment way out there at first, and you're going to do grungy, grimy, unexciting tasks. But if this is what you love, if you felt more alive here than you have anywhere else, then that is what you have to do. And you can do it. You don't have to be in DC to be doing it right now. If you were interning on the Hill, then volunteer as soon as you get home with your congressman. If you were working with an NGO or a nonprofit, everywhere you go has those needs. So you can be doing that, you can be demonstrating throughout the school year that you aren't just someone who's studying, you are someone who is doing the thing that people will pay you to do. So that was Jessica's experience. My experience was honestly slightly different. I had an amazing summer. I was thrilled and fascinated. It also made me realize, quite honestly, that DC was not the place for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you came here and you thought, you know, I love the politics, but I don't know if I want to do it on a national level, there are many, many roads to success, and they do not all go through DC. So if you came here and it made you realize that maybe this place isn't for you, it's not a wasted summer. That's an important thing to know, and you have to follow your gut, whether it's telling you, I got to get back here as soon as possible, or I need another life. And finally, I want to return to something that I mentioned earlier, which was the people who have invested in you and the people who allow you to be here. I know it's really tempting to think of ourselves as these sort of Aphrodites just floating out of the sea foam and into our book deal or into our internship, but the truth is that every single person here has many, many, many people who, as Mr. Rogers would put it, loved us into being. It's certainly your parents and your family. It's your professors at home. It's the people here at TFAS who have come to care deeply in you, who have given up their summer to teach you things. And you can't really ever repay back what others have given you when you're young. And I'm sorry, I know I sound like an old person now, but it's true. You can't pay it back. There's no amount of things, nice things you can do for your parents to thank them for supporting you and for bringing you to a place where you can excel. It's not a debt. But really, the one thing that you can do to make their investment worth it is to go out and be excellent. And go out and make them proud and take everything you learned this summer, take everything that you saw this summer, and take it forward with you. Don't let it go away. Don't let whatever hunger and whatever beautiful things you've learned and whatever fascinating people you've met just sort of evaporate. Keep it with you. And finally, I will circle back one last time to what I said in the very beginning, which is when I did not congratulate you, which is kind of a jerky thing to do, I think we can all acknowledge. I do, in fact, congratulate you. Not necessarily just on this, but on who you are as people and what you have done this summer, but way, way more importantly, what you're going to do from here. Because if you look around in this room, there are so many people who are going to do it and be incredible people in this world. And I know that in 30 years, there's going to be a lot of you still here, and there's going to be a lot of you who are going to be doing huge things. And so congratulations to that person that you will become. And thank you all so, so much for listening again. It's been lovely to be here.
Thank you for those wonderfully prepared and thought through and very educational remarks. I'm standing between you and the end of this event, so I will try to be brief. This is the first time I have actually been in this auditorium in many years. My children would probably say many decades. And I was the last time here sitting where you are now. And this is a great day for me to be back on the campus of George Washington University. I'm frequently here because my law office is only about 3 or 4 blocks away. But this is a great institution, and it's a very logical successor to the 4 decades and some odd years that the Fund for American Studies spent at Georgetown University. Georgetown, 1789. George Washington University has a later year. It was actually founded as National University. George Washington gave him a 20-pound check. 20 pounds in those days for some people was about 20 years worth of income. But it was enough to do 2 things. 1, assure the survival of the institution, and 2, to name it after him. I was thinking when I was driving in this morning that George Washington's family colors were red and white, coming from the coat of arms, which is the flag of the District of Columbia. George Washington, as a young man, applied to London to become an officer of the British Army. So he would have been a redcoat if they had said yes. It turned out for the British Empire to be a very bad decision to say no to him. And so today, we know George Washington's colors is gold and blue. And I'm sitting here on the stage today, and I'm looking at the floor. One of my sons is a theatrical business manager in New York City. And on the floor of this stage, and you can't see it, there are pieces of yellow tape, pieces of pink tape, green tape. This lectern is actually surrounded by 4 pieces of white tape. And the reason for that is to control what goes on this stage when they move pieces of equipment here. And the thought comes to me that you today at this closing ceremony must spend much of your life in a very conscious way as you go out from here and continue through your life and careers, trying not to let the colored tapes of life control you. You absolutely owe it to yourself to control your own life, career, your destiny, your legacy. I think those of us who are, like myself, fairly headstrong about things have a very defined view, I certainly did at your age, as to what was going to happen in my life. One of the founders of the Fund for American Studies happened to be one of my instructors, as a matter of fact. At that time, I was deeply involved in not only marine biology, but the more precise science of marine botany, so I was studying plants instead of animals. And David said to me one day, "Do you really want to spend 6 months every year on a research vessel, 6 months in a formaldehyde-smelling laboratory, or do you want to come to Washington," I was in Florida at that time, "and really try to make a difference in a different way in the world?" And so I succumbed to that. But to make the point, I succumbed to that because I was listening not to myself, but I was listening to those around me that saw something perhaps in me that I did not see in myself. And I want you to go through life. You know, you're at an age where you listen a lot to your parents, and I would say as a parent of 4 adult children, I'm very glad that that's true. But you also need to listen to your siblings. It's amazing to me that your brothers and sisters at this point in your life see things in you that perhaps your parents don't see. And then you need to listen to your friends and your colleagues because they may see strengths within you and your personality that others may not see. Listen to them, but it's the one time that you will go through life, we assume from our theology, and pay attention, but make your own decisions. The second point that I'd like to make today is that you've had a wonderful 8 weeks experience in Washington. We said at orientation that it would be the fastest 8 weeks in your life. When I was walking over here this morning from the office, coming down the sidewalk and sometime with the students, they were observing just how true that had been. But the frightening thing about that observation is that every single 8 weeks of your life is at exactly the same time. Same number of months, same number of weeks, same number of days, hours, minutes, nanoseconds, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line on that, and certainly some of us in this room who are between third base and home plate in the journey of life, is that life moves very, very, very quickly. There are days that it seems like the day won't end, but quite frankly, life goes quickly. You need to absolutely maximize in every way you can what it is you're trying to get out of life and what it is you're trying to give back to others that are part of your life. It goes very, very quickly. One of our student speakers referenced one of our members of the Board of Regents of the Fund for American Studies as a descendant of Thomas Jefferson, and that's almost true. He's not quite a descendant of TJ, he's a descendant of TJ's sister. But I was down in Charlottesville back in the early part of the spring at Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, and the docent made an interesting observation in response to one of the questions that was asked by somebody else that was on tour. And Jefferson had written to his daughter, "It is amazing what we can do when we keep on doing." And I guess that one sentence to his daughter is a clear call to just keep at it, work hard at it, don't be idle. You get back from life what you put into it, just keep to the task. And with that, I send you on your way. Thank you very much.